Peace, love, and life, family. It's your girl, Morgan Renee Myers, tuning in with you all for a rising reading of Feeding the Soul by Tabitha Brown. Let me stop for a quick drink of my live alkaline water, which is locally sourced on some black-owned land out here in North Carolina. Did you wake up, stretch, drink water, give thanks, go over your goals and affirmation, moisturize, brush your teeth, wash your face before getting online or before you headed out to work? If not, take 5 minutes to do that because you matter. Self-care. So yesterday's chapter was so profound to me. That was called Everyone Can't Go, that I didn't want to wait till the end of the day to get to this read. I wanted to start my day off with it. So we're in chapter 4, and it says, I changed my mind, and that's okay. If you have not been catching up with these readings, you can follow them on my Storytime with More of my Instagram channel, or you can also find them on my YouTube channel, Morgan Myers. It'll have the red logo with the M inside of it for More of Mine. So let's get into it. Chapter 4, I changed my mind, and that's okay. Reading Feeding My Soul, because that's my business, finding our way to joy, love, and freedom by none other than Auntie Tabitha Brown. All right, I changed my mind, and that's okay. It starts off with a quote that says, I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. And that's often attributed to Angela Davis. Traditions are amazing, aren't they? Family traditions, work traditions, personal traditions. There are so many different types of traditions to be honored and treasured if that's your business. However, someday you may decide to not participate in a particular tradition anymore. Maybe you have your own family and you want to create your own new traditions. Maybe you started a new job at a new company and they do things differently than your previous employer. Honey, that's okay. Just because it's always been one way doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Ooh, message. We've always done it does not mean it has to continue to be done. You can start a new ritual or tradition, or you can say, I'm done with traditions altogether. Either way, it's your business, and you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You've heard the saying, no is a complete sentence. Let me tell you what's also a complete sentence. I changed my mind. And guess what? You don't have to offer any explanation. If you don't want to be a part of a tradition, if it's not your thing anymore, then honey, don't do it. The people around you, and yes, that means family too, will have to adjust, and they will be just fine. You get to live your life by your own standards and define yourself for yourself. And I realize that the family pushback is real. Hear this, honey. Just because that's how you were raised, or that's how mom and dad did it, or that's how it's always been, does not mean you have to keep on doing it. Okay? As a parent, I know we get it wrong sometimes, whether we want to admit it or not. We parents don't always know why we do what we do. So just because you were taught a particular way doesn't mean that way is right for every season of life. But how do I know if it is or isn't, Tab? Check yourself. If you keep hearing from those in your circle of influence, why do you keep doing that? Why are you acting that way? Why did you even make that decision? It might be time to reevaluate all those things you've learned and figure out if any of them are serving you well. Maybe they are, and that's your business. But maybe they aren't. And now you have an opportunity to shift your thinking and change the way you've traditionally thought or behaved. Back home, going to church every Sunday was a real tradition for us. My parents became Christians when I was in the 5th grade. My dad had a drinking problem in my early years and was in a severe car accident. After literally dying and then being revived, he stopped drinking and gave his whole life to God. Wow. He was a changed man, which meant that our whole household changed too. We all began going to church as a family, but prior to that, my parents would drop me off at my granny's house so that I could go to church with her down in Draper, North Carolina, just outside of Eden. I would go with her and my great-granddaddy John, who lived right behind the church and was responsible for opening and locking the doors since it sat on his property. Honey, it was right there at great-granddaddy's church where I learned how to play the tambourine. I'd sit on the front row next to him, a deacon, and tear my little hands up to the rhythm of the old gospel hymns coming through the Hammond organ. This was our tradition. Church was mandatory. I went to Sunday school first, then the regular church service, followed by a second service. Don't forget Bible study on Wednesdays. And if you choose not to go to church, then best believe you'd be shunned for it. Even as a child, though, I never quite understood why. If God loved us so much, my granny or even my parents would make people feel guilty about not going. Growing up, the gospel's creed of come as you are became, in unspoken ways, come when you're ready, and that never sat right with me. We go to church because we want to get right, but when we go, we're sometimes scorned because we aren't right already. Who's really ready? Neither perfection nor utter devastation should be the determining factors for seeking God and His solace within the community. So guess what I've done with that tradition? I've set it aside. Yes, I honor how impactful that foundational experience was in my upbringing, but I do not believe that guilt and shame is the way to bring people closer to God. My immediate family does not go to church every Sunday. I vowed to myself from a very young age that if God blessed me to have children, I would never force a religion on them or anyone else for that matter. I would present it to them. I would absolutely introduce them to God and ensure they knew that a relationship with the Creator is theirs to have. But in raising my children now, I don't believe I have to force them into belief or manipulate them into going to church with visions of hellfire and destruction. Because, honey, let me tell you something. The quickest way to turn somebody off is to try and force them to do something. That goes with church, yes, but it also goes with every other area of our lives. Relationships, jobs, and as a vegan, I've seen it firsthand. Go ahead, try to tell somebody you need to go vegan or else, and watch them roll their eyes and tell you to hush your mouth. Yeah, I'm not in the business of trying to convince people to do anything either. I live my lifestyle. I share the information I have. I share my journey. Either you get some benefit out of it, some education out of it, and you decide on your own and you ask for help, or you just watch from afar and keep doing your thing. I don't have the time to be convincing nobody about nothing. Everybody got a different path, life, body type, blood type. It's not for me to be telling people what they should be doing. Well, some stuff when it comes to some of this family stuff, but not nobody diet. I'm sorry. Traditions are wonderful, but they can become weights when they are imposed upon people. We also have to be careful not to hold on to these traditions out of fear of the unknown. When we refuse to let them go, especially when they are no longer serving us, out of some obligation or attachment to familiarity, we are limiting ourselves and hindering our growth. I'm going to reread that. That's powerful. When we refuse to let them go, talking about traditions, especially when they are no longer serving us, some out of obligation or attachment to familiarity, we are limiting ourselves and hindering our growth. I've been on jobs, and I'm sure you have too, when a manager or supervisor says, well, this is how it's always been done. It didn't matter that I or another employee had a new idea or innovation that will better serve the community, the company. That manager was bound to a narrow way of seeing things. In those moments, Tab may or may not have said, well, that doesn't mean it has to be done that way. I'd watch as the company or project missed out on an opportunity to be and produce something better. And that's exactly what happens to us personally when we refuse to let go of our old mindsets and traditions. We miss the opportunity to be better and produce better. For others of us, it's not about a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of the response, how our changed mind will be perceived. We know that people will not respond well to our growth and changes. For a very long time, I was that person. I'd always conform to the status quo or contort myself to make others feel comfortable. Honey, let me tell you, that was not freedom. There's something terrible about sitting around dreaming of liberation instead of living it. And ultimately, I became trapped in my own body, suffering. I needed a wake-up call, and I surely got one. It took me getting very sick, depressed, and anxious before I realized, wait a minute, girl, you are enough. You ain't got to do the things the way you've always done them just to make other people feel comfortable. You don't have to try to fit in. No, ma'am. I'm going to do it my way, Tabitha's way. There are two things I live by, especially when it comes to my life and my career. I don't do anything traditionally, and I don't do anything normal. If I'm in a meeting and somebody new on the team starts saying, well, we normally do this, or traditionally, my whole team already knows that a kind but firm redirect is coming, I will lovingly tell that person, oh, honey, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't do anything traditionally, and I don't do anything normal. I do it my own way. I do it my way. And you might not have ever done it my way before, but guess what? We're going to learn to do it together, and it's going to be all right. We're going to figure it out as we go, because at the end of the day, it's got to feel right to me. And here we are. Listen, it really is going to be all right for you and for me, because even if we fail, even if we fall down in our efforts to do things differently, we're still better off. We'll fail forward. Remember, failing is really just another lesson learned. We will be constantly growing. God has purposed us to do things that are uniquely ours to do. We're no longer going to be afraid of being ourselves. We're no longer going to dim our lights or hide our shine just to accommodate someone else's limited thinking. We're not doing that anymore, okay? Very good. TSA, tab service announcement. Stop talking yourself out of things, baby. Too many of us overthink everything. We write stories in our minds about why we can't do something and focus on it so much that we never actually move forward. I don't care if there's only one reason you might probably most likely be able to do something. Focus on that one thing. Write the vision down. Make it plain. Set your goals. But be flexible enough to shift if the route to your destination changes. If one plan fails, create another. Listen to me, honey. You are smart and capable. You are beautiful and talented. It doesn't matter how much or how little education you have. You know that life has taught you more than a few things. Use it all. Don't sell yourself short. But here's the real catch. Whether you tell yourself you can do it or you tell yourself you can't, either way, you're right. And that is the end of chapter 4. Give thanks to you, Tab. I'll check in later with chapter 5. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to Feeding the Soul. All right. Peace and love. Y'all have a great day.